The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and flowing champagne as my sister Natalie's wedding celebration reached its peak. White roses cascaded from every table centerpiece while 300 guests enjoyed the most extravagant reception our family had ever hosted. I sat at the family table, picking at my salmon dinner while trying to ignore the familiar ache spreading through my chest and back. "Ladies and gentlemen," Natalie announced from the head table, her voice carrying across the ballroom with practiced confidence. "I want to thank everyone for being here on the happiest day of my life." The assembled relatives and friends raised their glasses in anticipation of the traditional wedding toast. Natalie looked radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown, diamonds glittering at her throat as she prepared to address the crowd that had gathered to celebrate her marriage to Dr. Michael Harrison, a prominent cardiac surgeon. "Michael and I are so blessed to have such wonderful families," she continued, her voice warm with genuine happiness. "People who support us, believe in us, and celebrate our achievements." I shifted uncomfortably in my chair as another wave of pain radiated through my ribs. The latest round of chemotherapy had been particularly brutal, leaving me with bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of rest could cure. But I'd learned to hide the worst symptoms from family gatherings. "I especially want to acknowledge those who show us what real strength looks like," Natalie said, her tone beginning to shift slightly. "People who face genuine challenges with grace and dignity." Mom beamed with pride from her seat beside me, clearly assuming this was building toward praise for the family's resilience. Dad nodded approvingly, his camera ready to capture his daughter's wedding wisdom. "Unlike some people," Natalie continued with a pointed glance in my direction, "who manufacture drama for attention." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the ballroom. Several relatives turned to look at me, their expressions shifting from curiosity to knowing disapproval. "My sister Rachel has been claiming mysterious health problems for months," Natalie announced to the entire reception. "Weekly hospital visits, constant complaints about feeling tired, dramatic doctor appointments that never seem to produce actual diagnoses." The ballroom fell quieter as guests processed this unexpected turn in what should have been a celebration of love and unity. I felt my cheeks burn as 300 people focused their attention on me. "I mean, really?" Natalie laughed, the sound carrying clearly through the sound system. "If you're actually sick, why all the secrecy? Why never tell anyone what's supposedly wrong?" "Because telling your family you have stage 3 breast cancer tends to overshadow wedding preparations. Because discussing mastectomy options and chemotherapy schedules ruins celebration dinners. Because I wanted her to have one perfect day without cancer casting shadows over her happiness. At least I'm not faking cancer for sympathy," Natalie declared with cruel satisfaction. "At least I deal with real problems like a mature adult instead of creating medical drama whenever someone else succeeds." The applause that followed was scattered but enthusiastic, particularly from relatives who'd grown tired of my frequent medical appointments and obvious fatigue during family events. Uncle Robert nodded approvingly. Cousin Lisa clapped with theatrical enthusiasm. "So here's to honesty," Natalie raised her champagne glass higher, "to facing reality instead of hiding behind made-up illnesses, and to supporting family members who actually achieve something meaningful." The toast was completed to genuine applause as 300 wedding guests celebrated my sister's courage in calling out my supposed lies. I sat frozen in my chair, watching my family drink to the idea that my cancer diagnosis was elaborate fiction designed to steal attention from Natalie's medical school graduation and wedding planning. My phone buzzed against my purse with the familiar pattern reserved for urgent medical communications. Dr. Peterson's office, probably with results from yesterday's staging scans that would determine if the cancer had spread to my lymph nodes or other organs. "Are you going to answer that?" Mom asked with pointed irritation. "More medical drama during your sister's wedding reception?" Before I could respond, I noticed movement near the ballroom entrance. Dr. Peterson himself was walking through the crowd, still wearing his hospital scrubs under a formal jacket, carrying what looked like medical files and accompanied by 2 other physicians I recognized from the oncology department. The sight of 3 cancer specialists entering a wedding reception could only mean one thing. The staging results were urgent enough to require immediate discussion, regardless of the social setting. Natalie's perfect wedding was about to be interrupted by the medical reality she'd just finished mocking in front of 300 witnesses. Dr. Peterson approached our table with the measured stride I'd come to associate with serious medical discussions. Behind him, Dr. Martinez from Radiation Oncology and Dr. Chin, chief of the hospital's cancer center, followed with expressions that suggested this wasn't a social visit to congratulate the bride. Ms. Rachel Morrison? Dr. Peterson said quietly, his voice barely audible over the wedding reception's ambient noise. I apologize for interrupting, but we need to discuss your staging results immediately. The family table fell silent as three distinguished physicians in hospital attire stood before us, their presence creating an unmistakable aura of medical urgency that penetrated even Natalie's wedding celebration high. Staging results? Dad asked with growing confusion. Rachel, what kind of medical tests require 3 doctors to deliver results? Before I could answer, Dr. Chin stepped forward with professional courtesy but unmistakable authority. Sir, I'm Dr. Chin, Chief of Oncology at Georgetown Hospital. Your daughter has been under our care for the past 4 months. The word oncology hit the table like a physical blow. Mom's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips, her face draining of color as she processed the implications. Oncology. Natalie's voice cracked from the head table, her wedding confidence evaporating as she realized her toast about faking cancer had just been delivered to actual cancer doctors. But she never said. Dr. Peterson opened his medical file with careful precision. Ms. Morrison specifically requested that we not contact family members about her diagnosis. She wanted to protect you from worry during important family events. The irony was devastating. While my family had convinced themselves I was manufacturing medical drama to steal attention from Natalie's achievements, I'd been quietly undergoing treatment for invasive breast cancer that had required surgery, chemotherapy and radiation therapy. What diagnosis? Uncle Robert demanded, his earlier approval of Natalie's toast now replaced by growing horror. Dr. Martinez consulted his notes with clinical detachment. Stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma with lymph node involvement. Ms. Morrison underwent a modified radical mastectomy followed by aggressive chemotherapy and radiation protocols. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sound of wedding music from the dance floor, where other guests continued celebrating, unaware of the medical crisis unfolding at the family table. Mastectomy? Mom whispered, her voice barely audible. Rachel, when did you have surgery? 3 weeks before your engagement party, I said quietly. I didn't want to overshadow the announcement. Natalie looked like she was trying to solve a complex equation in her head. But you came to the engagement party. You seemed fine. Ms. Morrison attended family events between chemotherapy sessions, Dr. Peterson explained. She scheduled her treatment around important family milestones to avoid disrupting celebrations. The devastating reality was settling over them like fog. While they'd assumed my fatigue and frequent medical appointments were attention-seeking behavior, I'd been timing cancer treatment around their social calendar to protect their happiness. The staging scans we completed yesterday, Dr. Chin continued, his voice growing more serious, show concerning developments that require immediate discussion. Dad's face had gone gray. Concerning developments? Dr. Peterson opened another section of my medical file. The cancer has metastasized to Ms. Morrison's liver and lungs. We're now looking at stage 4 disease with significantly altered prognosis. Stage 4. Metastatic cancer. The words hung in the ballroom air like smoke from an extinguished candle, transforming Natalie's wedding celebration into a medical emergency consultation. Stage 4 means. Natalie's voice trailed off as her medical school training supplied the answer she didn't want to acknowledge. Terminal, Dr. Martinez confirmed gently. Without immediate aggressive treatment, we're looking at months, not years. The wedding reception continued around us, guests dancing to romantic ballads while my family processed the devastating news that their attention-seeking daughter was dying of metastatic cancer. But she just sat through your entire wedding toast, Cousin Lisa said with dawning horror. You called her a liar in front of 300 people while she was protecting all of you from the truth, Dr. Chin finished. Ms. Morrison has shown extraordinary courage, managing terminal cancer diagnosis while maintaining normal family relationships. Natalie was staring at me from the head table, her wedding bouquet forgotten in her lap as she realized the magnitude of her public humiliation of a sister fighting for her life. The immediate treatment options, Dr. Peterson said, checking his watch, require family consultation and decision-making. We can't wait for a more convenient time. Dr. Chen pulled out additional medical imaging and spread the films across our wedding reception table, transforming the elegant setting into an impromptu medical consultation. The contrast was surreal. Scan results showing metastatic cancer displayed among wedding favors and champagne glasses. These are your sister's latest CT scans, Dr. Chen announced to my family, his voice carrying clearly enough to draw attention from nearby tables. The white areas indicate metastatic lesions in her liver, lungs, and bone marrow. Guests at adjacent tables had begun to notice the unusual gathering of physicians at our family table. The wedding celebration continued on the dance floor, but our corner of the ballroom had become a medical emergency zone. Bone marrow. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. How long has she known? For months, Dr. Peterson replied. Ms. Morrison has been undergoing chemotherapy every 2 weeks, radiation therapy 3 times weekly, and managing significant treatment-related complications. Mom reached for my hand with trembling fingers. The hospital visits we mocked. Those were cancer treatments? Chemotherapy infusions, radiation sessions, blood work monitoring, surgical follow-ups. Dr. Martinez listed methodically. Your daughter's medical care has been intensive and complex. The realization was spreading through the immediate family like a contagion. Uncle Robert, who had applauded Natalie's toast about my fake illness, now sat in stunned silence as cancer specialists discussed my terminal prognosis. But why didn't you tell us? Natalie asked from the head table, her voice carrying across the ballroom with unintended amplification from the wedding sound system. Because I wanted you to have a perfect wedding, I said simply. I wanted engagement parties and bridal showers and rehearsal dinners without cancer hanging over everything. Dr. Chen consulted his tablet with practiced efficiency. Ms. Morrison's treatment compliance has been remarkable, but the metastatic progression requires immediate family involvement in care decisions. What kind of care decisions? Dad asked, though his medical background suggested he already knew the answer. Hospice consultation, Dr. Peterson said gently. With liver and lung involvement, we're looking at weeks to months for survival. Aggressive treatment might extend that timeline, but quality of life becomes the primary consideration. The words hospice consultation seemed to echo through the ballroom, reaching nearby tables where wedding guests began to understand that something devastating was unfolding at the family table. Weeks to months, Natalie repeated numbly. But in my toast I said she was faking cancer. In front of 300 people, Cousin Lisa added with horror. While she was actually dying of cancer. Dr. Martinez checked his phone for urgent communications. Ms. Morrison, we really need to discuss treatment options tonight. The progression is moving faster than anticipated. Treatment options at a wedding reception? Mom asked with dawning hysteria. Cancer doesn't observe social schedules, Dr. Chen replied with clinical compassion. When patients reach stage 4 with rapid progression, timing becomes critical. As my family processed the devastating reality that their mockery had been directed at someone whose cancer had just advanced to terminal status, I felt a strange mixture of relief and exhaustion. The truth was finally out, even if it had required metastatic disease to reveal it at my sister's wedding reception. The ambulance is standing by, Dr. Peterson said quietly. We need to transport you to the hospital for emergency treatment planning. Natalie's perfect wedding had become the setting for my cancer crisis, exactly what I'd spent 4 months trying to prevent. The wedding reception transformed into a medical crisis as paramedics arrived to transport me to Georgetown Hospital for emergency oncology consultation. Natalie's celebration guests watched in stunned silence as cancer specialists discussed my prognosis in the same ballroom where moments earlier she'd mocked my fake illness for sympathy. I'm so sorry, Natalie whispered as I was helped onto a stretcher, her wedding dress trailing behind her as she followed the medical team. Rachel, I had no idea. I thought you were just jealous of your success, I finished weakly. I know. That's what I let you believe. The ambulance ride to the hospital felt surreal after months of hiding my condition from family members who should have been supporting me through cancer treatment. Through the rear window, I could see the Fairmont Hotel's lights growing smaller, along with the wedding reception that had become my cancer revelation. Dr. Peterson sat beside me, monitoring my vitals while explaining the aggressive treatment protocols available for metastatic disease. Your family will want to be involved in decisions now, he said gently. No more protecting them from reality. At the hospital, my family filled the oncology waiting room while I was admitted for emergency staging and treatment planning. Through the glass doors I could see Natalie still in her wedding gown, speaking intensively with social workers about caregiver support and hospice options. The irony, I thought as morphine dulled the pain radiating through my bones, is that it took terminal cancer to make my family realize that some struggles are too devastating to share at wedding celebrations. Some truths, after all, are revealed when concealment becomes impossible, even when the truth destroys the very celebrations you died trying to protect.